Oh, Flo, you look amazing.
Thank you.
Bit of shoulder. I love it.
Yeah, I thought I'd go a bit cheeky, if that's all right.
Flo, should we just start with you? Do you want to just give like a little intro to yourself?
Yeah. So I'm Floriane and Verity, and I'm a manufacturing engineer by background, actually working in the policy space at the moment. And I love all things STEM, technology, like data, nerdy stuff, but also female empowerment and opening spaces up for minority groups.
Oh, well, that's everything that we want, isn't it? Especially on International Women's Day. Yeah, I should say yes.
Woohoo!
Woohoo! We should celebrate
Favorite day of the year.
I feel like I have lots of other favorite days, but this is also the best day too.
Yeah,
what about you, Verity? Quick intro.
So I'm also an engineer working in power generation. Been in the power business now for 14 years. Yeah, sort of started off in a very technical role, doing thermodynamic modelling of power plant cycles, and then broadened out a bit. Did some time in Germany in the headquarters of the power generation business and the company, and then I moved back to the UK and got a role in a power plant where I still am now. I've had a couple of different roles there. And yeah, now I'm kind of looking for a new challenge, which is obviously like why I got in touch with you, Hayley, because now Fearless Careers alumni. So yeah, looking towards that next step. But also I'm really passionate about like things like diversity and inclusion, particularly sort of gender equality. So have similar to you, Flo, have a real interest in that. And yeah, wanting to get into the sort of more sustainable energy area of like using my engineering problem solving in that area. That's kind of where I want to get into, like helping solving like big problems in the world.
I feel like, isn't this the reason why we become engineers? Right? It's to solve the problem. It's to help people and solve big problems. But then you can end up going into an office or a particular job, and then you feel like, I'm not doing any of that. What am I doing?
Yeah.
Also,
definitely.
it's funny you say that. When I was at school, I remember. Do you remember was it the UCAS form you fill in, and it said like, and I remember writing something like wanting to like make the world better or something like that. And I remember like one of my teachers being like, "Oh, that's a bit presumptuous. Like, I think you need to tone that down a bit." And I often think back on that. I think, God, that's awful. Like, imagine like, this young student like really wanting to make a difference and like just being told, well, you need to tone yourself down, girl. Who do you think you are?
Wow.
It's pretty crazy, actually, when I think about
it. It's awful. I think what's even worse is that like probably every one of us has a story like that. I remember like quite early on doing a lot of like policy and public speaking stuff, and then this trend of people coming up to me and being like, "You spoke really well. Like that was a great talk. Like really well done. Lovely to see you here." And it's just kind of like, did you expect me to turn up and speak like, I know I'm from East London, but I'm not going to come in with my Cockney slang and sort of, all roadman from ends speaking to a group of people. Like I found that quite not as flattering as they probably thought it was. And it's just people just speaking without realizing kind of their unconscious biases. But yeah, I'm really sorry that they said that to you. And hopefully, I feel like you've proved them wrong as well. Like,
She has.
Still working on it.
They told you to tone it down. You toned it up. Yeah.
That is amazing. I feel like that's a tweetable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they tell you to tone it down, tone it up.
Exactly. With the finger point, that's necessary.
Okay, so let's shift over to like confidence, and I guess it kind of lends into itself really. What, Flay, what, I don't know what the question is here, because you can't say what is the relationship that you have with confidence, because for me, it's always been this weird relationship where sometimes I am confident, other times I'm not. It depends on the situation, where I could have lots of confidence, or it's something that grows, and it can be something that you have and then is completely taken away from you. Don't know if you've ever been in situations where you've just been disarmed, but you feel like you had confidence going in, but then suddenly, pow, all of it's gone. And you're just standing there feeling like vulnerable as hell. But yeah, what is it like for you? And have you, I mean, you are quite a confident person, or come across as one. Have you always been confident?
I think I've always been bossy. Like all my old school reports say that. I kind of compartmentalize confidence in a way, and I wouldn't recommend this probably. It's kind of confidence in who I am career-wise, and like my knowledge and who I am as a professional, I think has taken time to develop, but I feel quite solid in that, in the way that like I know what I'm doing and I'm doing a job and I think I'm doing it quite well. But then there's always those sort of niggling feelings of I don't deserve to be here, or I'm not as qualified as everyone else, or like how can that person be working for me? Like I barely have any qualifications, type of thing. And I think like as a woman, there's so many things that feed into being confident, and so like body confidence is something I've struggled with my whole life, like ever since I can remember. And that's something I'm still having to kind of build up, because it's not something that I naturally have. And sometimes that can be at odds, because you'll be kind of doing this amazing talk, thinking you're really kicking it, and then see a reflection of yourself and think, oh crap, I don't look great. And then that kind of knocks it all down. So it was, although they're kind of separate things that you can kind of assess, they all kind of interlink.
Yeah.
And I do think it's kind of that challenge to meet your own standards. I think that's what's helped me a lot, is forgetting about what standards are for beauty and what society thinks like someone like me should be doing, and actually just focusing on what I care about and where I want myself to be has helped me to build confidence, because then you care less about what other people say and what other people think. And yeah, it's landed me in trouble before, but I think just kind of being the only person who cares about myself and what I do has helped me to kind of, you know, people are always going to say stuff that aren't great and try to knock you down. And it's kind of like, well, if you don't care about their opinion, it has less of an effect, but it's easier said than done. I don't know. Is that, I don't know, Verity, is that kind of how you feel?
It's so powerful, that, because what you're essentially saying is you don't compare yourself, or you do sometimes, but you try not to compare yourself to other people and what other people think of you. Because the thing that drags people down a lot of the time is comparison. And, you know, when you're scrolling on Instagram and you get the FOMO and everything like that, but you're essentially able to split what you want from society and what everybody else kind of thinks, which is like, how do you do that?
Yeah, I don't know, because I think it's also, I try and then I fail often. And I think that's just kind of the natural, like when you scroll through Instagram, and like, I would say I don't fit into the standard beauty like ideals at all. Like bit plus size, a bit taller than most women, like have quite broad shoulders. And I've always kind of been a bit like, oh, I don't know, do people find me attractive? And it's been more about what's important to me. And like at the end of the day, so long as I'm healthy and my body can help me to achieve what I want in life, like that's more important than what, I don't know, OK Mag thinks about the ideal woman. And as much as I might love to look like Beyonce, like that's just not what my purpose on the world is, you know? So it's kind of also accepting that the people who look perfect have teams of people to make them look perfect every single day. And if you're just doing it, like my makeup routine in the morning is 15 minutes flat. Like that's how long I have to put stuff together. It's just really ridiculous to kind of keep holding yourself to those standards. And I know it's easier said than done, but that's definitely like just facing the realities of why are you comparing yourself to people whose lifestyles are nothing, not nothing, who aren't comparable to your
it's their job.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
what they get paid to do. They get paid to work out 3-4 times a day and starve themselves. Or I don't know, Beyonce and J-Lo and everyone like that, they just dance constantly. And, you know, you're choosing to fight and help save the planet and do big things.
Yeah. And you don't have to be on the front of a magazine to do that either. It's also, that's the other thing, is like, I'm just never going to be subjected to that type of scrutiny. So I don't see why I should do that to myself. But again, like, it's so easy to say that, but putting it into practice has been very hard.
So what about you in terms of confidence? And I'm still going to say your relationship with confidence, or how you kind of approach confidence.
Yeah, it was interesting. Like, I was listening to what Flo said, because I think image really does come into it for a woman. Like, I think you just grow up. I just remember, like, growing up just feeling like it mattered so much how I looked, and like it was like I had really bad skin as a teenager, and like I was like obsessed with my skin. It was oily, and like I think that does play quite. And I think for me, like, part of gaining confidence has been letting go of that image obsession. Like, fortunately now, like, I really couldn't care less. I had this brilliant moment the other day in the park where I was sat on a wall. I was doing like an outdoor. This was a while ago. It was when it was allowed. You could meet someone outdoors, and we were sat on a wall eating lunch. And I was eating this donut from Greg's. It was like, had lovely pink icing on it. It was just gorgeous. And this guy was staring at me, and I was just like chomping away at my donut. And I just turned to my friend and I was like, isn't it wonderful to reach like a time in your life when you can be sure that man is staring at, I can be sure that man is staring at my donut and not at me right now. And like how liberating that is, you know? Because, you know, I think, there's a lot of pressure as a woman on how you look. And yeah, fortunately, I'm not quite sure how it happened or where along the line, but like Yusuf, I've just like let go of that. And just you've got to just focus on like what's important to you and your goals, like, and never mind. I mean, okay, yeah, it might sometimes boost your confidence a little bit to look nice, but I've always thought it's a bit of a trap, you know, like, because if you spend all this time like putting on makeup and looking good, that's time you're not spending on making the world a better place, you know, or like doing like potentially more meaningful stuff. So
it's kind of a balance though, isn't it, with like the look stuff? Because I know that for me, if I'm going on stage, I need the makeup and I need the hair. If I'm going to be on TV, I need that. Otherwise, because it's also about perception and how other people perceive you as well.
Yeah.
And there are some instances where it really doesn't matter what you look like, but there are some cases where it does matter, because you still need to, people like putting you in a box. And if somebody turns up and they look scruffy with the hair all over the place, then people are going to judge them and they're not going to listen to them. But then it's also the balance of a woman of, okay, well, you don't want to look too like done up, especially as a woman in STEM and engineering. And I tell you what, since doing the BBC show, I have had so many messages from absolute like some random people, mainly men saying something about how I look. I've had a couple asking me genuine engineering questions, but it's always about what you look like. So it's difficult when you work in something as well that is visual to get that balance. But yeah, and I definitely find that if I put on like I've got a really cool jacket that I love wearing. If I put that on, it would like boost. It just makes me feel good because it's bright and it's jazzy and it's cool, and it makes me feel like I've got more of like a bit of an edge or something, which I think is really powerful as well. So I think using clothes, using makeup for yourself as well is important, not for the men staring at you whilst you're eating a donut. I completely get that, and I love that. But yeah, what about in the workplace and other sort of areas for you, Verity?
So again, like Yeah, I've been on a real journey. So it's taken me a long time to find my voice, I think. I've always been sort of quite confident with the people I know well and working with. And, but like, it's particularly for me, I had a bit of a thing when it came to like senior leaders. It was like, especially the ones that I sort of looked up to a bit and like probably wanted to impress more. Like, I would just clam up and just like couldn't speak to them, just like be really like awful. And I had this thing of like, I don't know if it's like my skin, but I blush quite easily. And like, just like if anyone spoke to me, I'd probably like blush really badly. Like, so yeah, I've always had a bit of that. I think as you get older, and it does go back to, again, it's what Flo said. It's like when you find something that you really like care about, it helps you to sort of like let go of all that other stuff that's sort of like, because I guess the reason like why I felt like that around senior leaders was just this, was like feeling like, oh my God, what are they going to think of me? Are they going to think I'm like stupid? And am I going to say something wrong? Like, I suppose it's all of that going on. And then, I suppose as I've got older, I've maybe sort of just learnt to let go of some of that stuff a bit more and be a bit more like focused on where I'm going, which I think, if you're focused on where you're going and what you want and it's easier to sort of block out some of that other stuff, I think.
You mentioned about getting older, you care less, but also when you care about something enough, all the rubbish around it kind of melts away and it doesn't matter so much as well, because you realize, well, is it worth worrying about that? Because that's this really important thing. And that's why understanding, and this is a difficult thing, because a lot of the time when people are struggling in their careers or kind of on a challenging path or something, it's because they've kind of lost touch with what is important to them, or it's hard to know because there's so many things that maybe they're interested in. And sometimes there's this belief that you're meant to have the one thing that you want to do, or just not knowing, kind of being stuck on the treadmill, or people saying, well, you should be doing this. You should, get chartered. You should go down that route. So you start to believe it, but then you're essentially living somebody else's story and that life rather than your own. And then there's this disconnection. And then you're inside, your voice is saying one thing, but then everything else is saying the other. But when you, as you've just said, when you believe in something, when you're doing something with purpose, it kind of meshes together. And then for the first time, you feel this inner strength, which is kind of intangible, this feeling of like, it's you're on this path and everything's more in sync. And that's why I feel like, what you just said is so powerful. But how do you get to that place? Because it's all well and good, but like, it's all great hearing it, isn't it? But how do you get to that place?
Yeah, I think it's acknowledging and accepting that it's not a final end state. And it's a kind of a continuous thing. It's the same with like health and well-being. Like, you don't just suddenly become healthy and then that's it. It's kind of a continuous process, and accepting that it's not going to happen instantaneously. And also it's about getting rid of what your preconceptions or misconceptions that you have about finding, the passion of your life. Because I think everyone thinks it's kind of Vincent van Gogh style and you get super into it and like that's all you think about, and then you do crazy things because like you're so passionate about it. But actually it's about balancing that with with the other facets in your life. And I found that for me it's about looking at what do I want, like that the questions that you've asked in our coaching, Hayley, about like what will my ideal day look like, or what would the ideal day look like in 10 years time for me, and what is really, really important when I'm lying on my deathbed and, looking all fabulous before my funeral, like what am I going to regret and what am I going to really appreciate? And I think that's helped me to kind of pick out the things that actually do matter. And I think looking attractive in the eyes of like the media is just not one of the things that come on that list. And then it's about, okay, if that's what I care about, how can I now work backwards to get to that point? And then keeping it in mind has really helped. And I think there's loads of tools, like the mantras and the meditation and just having that diary, I think has helped. And also the first step is kind of just acknowledging that, first of all. I think a lot of people don't actually realize that they're not working towards, what they love most in life. And that in itself is like the first roadblock, I guess. I don't know if that made any sense.
Yeah. But knowing that the phrase there that you said, not working towards what you most love in life, there's this thought sometimes that I know that I felt this, that I had to know exactly what that love is, but you don't. You don't need to know the specifics of what you love. You just need to know it on what you believe in. It's more like a broader thing of, okay, you might not know that you want to work for a specific company or in a specific role, but you know that you believe in helping the environment and sustainability. That's a belief that should guide you. And if you're not being guided by those beliefs, that's when things kind of feel off. And then you can slowly kind of whittle it down. What do you think, Verity?
Yeah, well, obviously you can go on your careers.
That wasn't a question where I was opening up and being like, plug me. It was a genuine
seconded.
I think this is what, I said to you after we did the program, but I think the process and all the questions are really important and valuable in helping you find, your like a good path for you. But for me, I think the most powerful thing was the mindset stuff. I find like having the mindset tools like meditations and doing yoga and like that really helps you to become aware of all the stuff that does potentially erode your confidence, all those little internal voices going, oh, but this happened, and like, what if you're not good enough for that, and and what if it, like, becoming aware of all those things helps you to let go of all the crap that's like getting in the way.
Yeah.
And become like more aware of like what you truly want, and that gives a confidence in itself, that sort of calmness that you get through meditation and like really being aware of all the little voices and not necessarily giving in to them. And just that, I think that piece that comes with that, really helps with that confidence. I think I would have used to say, if you'd have asked me like what's the key to like being confident, I would have used to say, preparation. Like you need to like prepare and know what you're doing, and that is all really important. Like, but I think the sort of the mindset thing and like being like the master of your mind and all of that, I think just adds a whole another level to that confidence.
That's so
because
powerful.
Then you can just be yourself and trust in that, rather than maybe trying to be something else.
I just want to repeat the phrase that you said of being aware of what is eroding at your confidence. That's what you said. Or something like that, or so it doesn't erode away your confidence. I think that is that little nugget is so important, because you're right. Because you might feel like you have a happy day and it's like, oh yeah, I'm riding high, I'm doing all of this stuff. But when you're in that place as well, there's still these things, there's still these thoughts that happen. You don't even realize that over time it's just slowly eroding away your confidence, which is why being aware of it every single day, it takes work. Like confidence takes work. It's not something that's just, I don't believe anyway that it's something that's just magically there. Obviously some people are naturally born with some than others, but I still believe people work at it, and it's a daily practice.
Absolutely. No, I think it's just also what Verity was saying about the mindset, because it's so easy to think like, if I just overcome these insecurities that I have, like if it's body weight and you're just kind of like, if I get skinnier, I'll be happier. And I think if you keep chasing the things that are not quite what you want, they're just there because of insecurities, because you're comparing yourself to other things, or you're not really focusing on what's important to you. That you could do all that work and get to what you think is that ideal state and still not feel confident. And then it's like, how have I put all this work into this goal and I still feel the same way? And sometimes it's not about, hitting that ideal state that you have in your mind. And it's more about, okay, what can I do today to make myself feel good? Because that's what makes me happy. I just think we don't do that enough in general. Like, we're not taught to do that as kids. And setting boundaries, because the people around you can have such an effect on your confidence. And it's all about having the right people around you who can pull you up when you're feeling down, and also, give you that slap up the head when you're just chatting nonsense and, beating yourself down. Yeah, I think that's really that. Sage words.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, actually. I think like the people that surround you is really massive with confidence.
So how does that translate into work then? Because obviously you're in an office. This is why who you work with and the boss that you have can be so fundamental to how you feel about yourself. Is essentially what we're saying. Because if you're not supported, if you don't work with people who you feel connected to, it might not be necessarily the job itself and what you're doing in the job. It might just be who you're working with and the culture and the environment that you're in.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. There's that saying, isn't there, that people don't leave like a job, they leave the boss. And my company actually did a panel interview thing for International Women's Day. And the one bit of advice, like one of the senior women on there gave, was exactly that, was like, make sure you have a boss that's is looking out for you, basically. Someone who trusts in you and wants to develop you. Yeah.
But that person doesn't have to be your boss, because you don't really have a choice on who your boss is sometimes. But it's finding a mentor or somebody in the company. And I've had that several times where maybe my boss isn't the best. In fact, I've had many bosses that aren't the best, but there have always been, in companies that I've worked for, mentors and even project managers in other projects who kind of have taken me under their wing or who make me feel good. So it doesn't matter about, the issue, the other bits, because you still have somebody to talk to. But if you don't have anybody in the company, and if everybody is the same, I can't even imagine how that must feel like, actually. So do you both have people, I don't want to talk too much about your jobs now, because obviously that's kind of awkward putting things out there, but do you feel supported in the environments that you're in?
In my earlier career, I'd always had that, like in my first job. And funnily enough, it's always been for International Women's Day, it's always been like women. I've had good bosses who sadly have always been men, but like I've had really good bosses. But also my first job that I had, there was like a really cool little network of other female engineers that we would like hang out, and I lived with like a couple of them, which was just we were great. And then when I moved out to Germany again, I had this like international group of like women that we all supported each other, and that was amazing.
And I mean, something that I can't yet understand, but I hope to understand is the impact that it can have having children as well, and being a mother in the workplace, and that sort of balance, and what that can mean for your confidence, and how companies treat women when they have children and all things like that can be really, really challenging.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like in some ways, I think like having kids gives you a whole new confidence, because it's a whole new thing that you've like when you have a baby and you're complete. You have no clue what you're doing, and then you have to learn, and you have to like go out and go to groups and get support, and like call on, like build a network of other mums, for support, because it's like a completely new thing. But like that in itself gives you a whole new confidence, because it's like, oh wow, look, I did this and I learned all that. And I felt in the beginning, at some point when I was back in the workplace, I felt like, wow, I'm coming now with all this new confidence. Like I can take on anything. Like I've had a baby and I learned how to keep it alive, and now he's thriving. Like I can do anything. There is an element that you come with that confidence, but then there's also this element of, the much harder element of how you're perceived, because now you're a mother, and I had all this assumptions I wouldn't want to do this role and that, and it was just awful. And that side is the really bad side. So there's a risk that you can lose all of that great confidence that you come with as a new parent, because you've just learned this amazing new skill of being a parent. That can just be sort of counteracted by, I suppose, people pushing you to one side, I suppose, almost writing you off, which is a bit how I felt what happened to me. But
I love hearing the other side of it as well, with how it brings out a new sense of confidence, because that's not something that you kind of hear about that much, actually. So that's really cool. So,
I think it comes down to being an engineer again and a problem solver. I tackled every new challenge with Joe, my son, is this is a new problem. I have to find out the solution. I'll read this book and I'll ask that person. I'll go to this group. And I loved it, because it was just this constant stream of little problems I had to solve. How do I get him to nap? I don't know, mate, but
wow,
that was my experience.
What an incredible mindset. What about you then, Flo, in terms of feeling supported?
Yeah, I think I have learned to ask for support, because I think asking for help is not something that comes naturally to me. But by doing that, it means that I have people in place and the information in place to help me, because I found this job to be a challenge in the sense that I almost feel out of place in terms of experience, age, etc. And it almost feels like I've kind of been plucked out of someone, just kind of dropped into this role, kind of and someone like me should have never ended up in this role, is that feeling that I've had to overcome. But having the support and having the people around me who know what I'm like, and me being very honest about this is how I do things, these are the gaps in my knowledge, how can I work on that, has really helped. I think there have been previous jobs where I haven't been supported, and I've been in charge of 80 kids who are running amok and not having the right amount of staff in place. And those are the situations that force me to learn how to ask for help and build that support network, because the only person who knows what you need is you, right? And I think having that sort of awareness and building that awareness over the past couple of years has helped with that. And also just we've talked about this a lot, just being vulnerable enough and being comfortable enough to just kind of ask for help and say, I can't do this thing, or I really need help. Because sometimes we like to have a bit of a front or bravado kind of, I can definitely do this. I don't need anyone's help. Especially I think being a young woman in an engineering firm, I don't want to be the ditzy person who's asking for this question that's really stupid, and actually putting that aside and saying, in order for me to do my job, I need to know the information, I need to know the facts, and I'm just not going to know everything. So that has helped big time.
I really like that. And that's really powerful. And what you said about, not the bravado and not wanting to come across in a certain way, that's definitely something that I can resonate with myself, and almost the need or feeling that you need to prove yourself as well, because we always need to prove ourselves more so than maybe other people who are in the room. So therefore, if you ask for help, then you're not proving yourself, is the kind of link that I had for so long. But then I realized actually, well, you can only prove yourself if you know enough and you learn enough. And that is by asking for help and being honest. And you can ask for help by the right people as well. You just find who you can trust in a company.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do that a lot now. I find myself being, whereas before I would have thought oh, I better not admit to this, but now I'm just and I'll admit I don't know the answer to this, and and I'm not the expert in this, and it's a bit like the blind leading the blind here. I find myself saying that a lot when like I just don't know, because I think it's so much more powerful and confident to admit you don't know and say like we need to get external help or I need to consult someone, than to try and like bumble along when, you know, because you can't know everything. You can't, like, no one's expected to know everything. So yeah, I'm quite comfortable now with saying like, yeah, I have no idea what we do now, but you know, let's think about who we could ask, or like who else has done this successfully that we could go like ask for help and that.
Yeah, it's that kind of I don't know, but I can learn sort of thing, which I think.
Yeah, I don't know, but I'll bloody well find out. Yeah, I'm sure there's a book on it. Yeah, it's like somewhere, someone somewhere will know about this and will have done it and will have like been in the same situation, faced the same problem.
Being able to say, if they ask you a question and you don't know the answer, and it's like, well, I don't know. Yeah, let me go away and I'll find out, without feeling like you're a failure. Yeah. I think it's quite an important one, because
being like, or being like, well, that's a really good question. I've no idea what the answer is, but let's, let me think about that one, or let me,
Whereas I know that from, I did a survey, which I think you might have said, I don't know if you did see this actually, but I asked some questions to some people who were part of the Career Boost, the weekly email that I send out. And there was again and again the statement of, I worry about my technical knowledge, that I don't have enough technical knowledge. And if somebody asks me a question, then I'm going to sound like a fool, or I'm going to make a mistake or something like that. But the truth in it is that it's okay. You don't need to know. And I've been on stage before where people, in front of 1,000 people, where somebody has asked me a technical question and I don't know the answer. And you just say, well, I don't know, but maybe we can talk about it afterwards or something. It's just not as big of a deal maybe as we think it is in our minds. We come back to the mindset and the mind.
And you also can't compare yourself to people who've been studying that field for 20, 30 years. Like, there's just no way you can amass that same amount of knowledge. And actually what you bring to the table is a different perspective, a fresh perspective. And actually not knowing an answer but going away and researching means that you might stumble across something that nobody had thought of before, and then you're bringing in something different. Yeah, I do think as a society we put a lot of value on being able to like regurgitate facts and just know things, and actually like where I feel, especially as us as engineers, where we have impact is where we can take our ideas and do something slightly different, and design something really cool, or to put in place a new system. And that comes not from knowing stuff, but like from building skills. So yeah, I definitely agree with you.
Okay, so we have only a few minutes left on the clock. Where does time go when you're having these conversations? Oh my goodness. So I want to just finish on one last question, okay, for both of you. So if you were faced with your younger self and if you think about a situation where you weren't feeling confident, or maybe you thought you were feeling confident, but actually you weren't, what advice would you give them? What would you say to them in how to feel more confident or strong or resilient in themselves? So the thing is, I know that because Flo, you are a more confident. So this is why it'll be an interesting answer from you actually as well. If you were bossy, you said, but were you confident when you were bossy, or was it a bossy front? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like bravado doesn't equal confidence. And yeah, you can fool other people, but if you don't feel confident in yourself, you then don't take opportunities that come towards you because you don't feel like you can do it, or you don't, put yourself forward for stuff because you don't feel like you can. And even just simple things like if you're not confident in yourself, you don't feel beautiful. And sometimes like you just want to feel pretty. And like, I'd probably tell my younger self to kind of stop trying to convince others that you're confident and that, you're this like really ballsy, bossy person. And actually the more important thing is how you feel about yourself and what you care about. Because yeah, I definitely think I've gone through life not necessarily caring how I perceive myself and worrying more about how other people think of me. And then looked back and like not really liked myself as a person. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Wow. What about you, Verity?
Yeah, I think developing that self-awareness, like, you know, get to know yourself, come to terms with yourself, like accept yourself for who you are. And then the confidence will just come with that. Yeah, because I think for me, when I think about like a lot of the confidence issues I had, it was where I was trying to be perfect or like live up to other people's expectations, a bit like what Flo said. But yeah, I think the key to confidence is being at peace with yourself, ultimately, finding peace with yourself, like, and being confident in yourself, and yeah, asking for support, like we said, when you need it, not being afraid to ask for help, or just like when you've reached your limitations, doing your homework, of course, like if it's like a big presentation or something like that, you know, being prepared, doing your homework, putting on your snazzy jacket, whatever it is. But ultimately, yeah, just being like at peace with yourself, I think, and getting to know yourself and understanding those things, get to understand those things that are affecting your confidence through something like meditation. Although I wonder, like, when I was 16, what I would have thought of meditation.
Yeah, I know.
That would be funny.
It's a concept that comes later, I think. Even me 3 years ago or 4 years ago was still a bit like, what? Meditation? That's just so woo-woo. What are you talking about? And I had no concept of what it was. But it's actually, as soon as I realized that it's just trying not to think, or not thinking, not even trying not to think, but not thinking or being in the moment, that's when it was like, oh, okay, because I enjoy things more when I'm just in the moment and I'm just focusing like when you're eating a sandwich, focusing on eating a sandwich rather than looking at the TV and your phone and thinking about what you're going to, like, I don't know, make for dinner later on.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I think it's so easy to dismiss it. I know I did. Like, I was just kind of like, meditation, mantras, like all of this self-awareness and, you know, developing yourself. I was just kind of like, you just develop yourself as you live life. And actually, like, that's just not how it, because life is hard and challenges come up and, you know, things happen that you can't have imagined. And then you end up in a place where you never expected to be. And it's kind of taking the time to take stock and understand who you are as a person helps you to bring yourself up from those low points. And I think that, if anything, is like the most important lesson. Because, yeah, I think if I hadn't started the way that I had like a year and a half ago, I would have been in that really sort of low, dark place and then maybe never pulled myself out of it. So, yeah, I agree. I think it's really easy to dismiss it, but just give it a try. Just see what happens.
And there's lots of different methods and different things. And if like mantras aren't your thing, then you can try something else. Like, there's so many different ways of kind of, in a way, it's relaxing or allowing yourself just to be and appreciating yourself, or being grateful. I know you write gratitudes down, don't you, Flo?
I found having a gratitude journal has really helped.
And what do you do for that?
Literally in my diary, there's like a little section for each day of the week. And then at the end of my day, I just, in a different colored pen, just kind of write something I'm grateful for. And it'll be the stupidest thing sometimes. It'll be like grateful for someone's charisma, or like really grateful for just good coffee. Like, but it's nice to look back on them and think, okay, these are the things that, you know, push you forward during the day. Yeah.
I really like that. And it brings you into it brings you into the present moment. If you're able to be grateful in the moment that you're doing something as well. I've even tried it. Okay, this is how extreme I've gone sometimes. I hate exercising and I hate HIIT. But when I'm at that pain point, that super, super, super pain point, you know, it's like usually I would just give up. I've started trying to use my mind to make myself go for longer, which is just really a weird concept for me. So instead, as soon as I start thinking, oh, I'm in pain, I think, you're amazing, you're strong, you've got this, you're awesome. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I am. And I can actually carry on for a little bit longer. And I just try and like switch it. And if, as soon as I've tried it as well, when I get really bad period pains, too much information now, I know. And you know, when you're thinking, oh, this is really painful, I then think, I'm okay. This isn't painful. I can relax my body. The pain isn't there. And it kind of subsides to some degree. The mind is weird.
Yeah.
And it can be quite fun, actually, playing with things like that, I think.
Emotional beta blockers is what it is.
Yes. Yeah. There's probably loads of research about it, probably. But anyway, I can talk to you both forever. But it is the evening. We're probably hungry and want dinner and everything. But thank you so much for your time and for being here and for being so honest and vulnerable and sharing. I know that I've enjoyed it, and even having these conversations are really helpful. So I hope that for you listening and watching as well, that you've got something out of it as well.
Thank you for having us. It's been really great to chat to you both. I've learned a lot as well, and time has gone so quickly.
Yeah, likewise. I've loved it. Like, I want to just carry on.
Yeah.
we can do another one sometime.
Yeah.
Every single time we have our coaching calls, like the group ones, I just think this is such amazing conversation, and these are such incredible women. I wish I could record this. I mean, obviously we go into far more detail in those, and everybody's far more vulnerable than what you would want going out to the public. But I feel like this conversation really got that across, and the honesty and everything. And I know it can be difficult to do that sometimes. So thank you. And you are very inspirational as women. And I hope that you know that.
Thank you. You too, Hayley. Thank you for bringing us together.